Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the West Allis-West Milwaukee School Board to order, please. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Ustruck, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Sujacki.
Here.
Ms. Curran is on her way. Mr. Bailey.
here.
Mr. Lee is excused. Mr. Ustruck.
Here.
Mrs. Justin excused. Ms. Emmons.
Here.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
President Sickett.
Present. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Board members and Dr. Lexman, any modifications to this evening's agenda?
I have nothing.
Nothing from the board members. We will move on to public comments. Right now, I have one. Just a reminder that when you reach the podium, if you could give us your name and address for the record, please, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. And we do not provide any answers or debate at this time, but if you have a specific question, that question will be answered by myself or Dr. Lexman before the next regularly scheduled board meeting. John Moling.
My name is John Mulling. I live at 3850 South Pole Drive in New Berlin, Wisconsin. We're in the section of New Berlin that's part of the school district. You might remember my face from a couple months ago. I was here after you guys took out the loan, after the referendum was turned down, and I came because I was pretty angry that night that you superseded that referendum by the voters of the area. I'm not mad tonight. I'm furious tonight. I got my tax bill last week. Right here it is. I talked with Sue on Saturday. I talked to the assessors. I went to the New Berlin assessor's office, and I called Jason, the assessor in West Dallas. And when I told him what my percent was of increase that I owed yet, they thought I was kidding. They said, that's just not possible. That can't be. I said, what would you two say? I'll have to fill in the blank. What would you say as an increase, a fairly substantial increase in 1 year? And they both answered 3%. Well, here's my tax bill. Want to guess what percent I'm at? 5%? 10%? 15%. We aren't there yet. Almost, though. 18.4%. $458. Sue, do you remember Saturday the first 2 words out of your mouth when I told you that? That's impossible. That was a quote. That's impossible. Well, I think it's pretty impossible too. $458. Nobody is paying that. And Jason told me the city of West Dallas will be having a 11.97% tax increase. Well, where does my 18.4 fit into that, even if it is correct? Have any of you seen this sheet of paper? This is from the city assessor's office in New Berlin. It shows the percent increases from the 4 school districts in this area. Very interesting stuff on here. The school districts are New Berlin, West Dallas, Elmbrook, and Muskego. And this is directly the final report from the assessor's office. Let's start with New Berlin. Percent increase of the tax rate. They did pretty nicely in New Berlin. Minus 1.2%. They went down. How about Elmbrook? Not quite as good, but they didn't do too badly either. 1.9% increase. Now let's go to West Dallas, West Milwaukee. We get the first place on this one. Went up 8.4%, the tax rate. And finally, little old Muskego. Little old Muskego out there went down 7.2%. That's 15.6 percentage points different from us till them. I guess those little old farm boys know their crap out there because they got a pretty good school board going for them. Minus 7.2. I talked with Sue on Saturday. I talked with Noah. He's not here. I talked with Noah before I talked to Sue a couple days earlier. Noah explained to me that the tax increase has nothing to do with the loan that you guys took out. He said it's just not on there yet. That's coming in March of this year. He tried to tell me the reason that the school district didn't get as much money this year as last is because we made too much money. We got that lawsuit settled, and what, was it 6.5 we got? 6.5 back from that, or whatever the number was? He said, what I understood, that the state of Wisconsin looked at that as income. And the state of Wisconsin looks at income and output, and that's how you get what you get for your school district. Well, I looked on the numbers too, and it looks like there was only $141,000, what I've seen, less this year than that. And if anybody on this board can tell me that an 18.4 is correct, I don't believe you. And I'm not sure if Noah explained it to me right. I wanted to give Noah a compliment because Jason said, if anybody in that board will give you the facts or look them up or find them for you, it's Noah. He does a good job on that. But I don't know if he was right. So that's pretty much where I'm at. There's no way 18.4 is right. Everybody has told me you've got to be kidding. It's not possible, just like Sue answered in the phone call. And that's all I have to say. But I would like someone to email me. I got my email on there. Email with the results, because I've already paid my, oh, what I did forget, over the weekend, I went in my neighborhood, and I asked 10 different families. Everyone has 18.4% increase, exactly the same amount. So I told them I'm coming down here, and I'm going to raise some hell, because that better not be right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for your comments. That was the only individual we had signed up, but I'll ask at this time if there's anybody in the audience that would like to address the board at this time. Seeing no one, we will move on the agenda. Number 7 is superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. So we're going to start 7.1, a report from West Allis Nathan Hale High School student representatives. So welcome back. And again, introduce yourself to the board and the public, and then share your update from Nathan Hale.
Okay, I am Jonathan Rao, Nathan Hale's senior representative.
I'm Anna Coleman, junior representative.
And to start, we'd just like to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to share a couple things about Hale for you. Okay, so we'll start with Nathan Hale Gives Back. The Nathan Hale students and staff are amazing with their tireless efforts to give back to the community and show their compassion for others during the holiday season. Students, clubs, and organizations, advised by our teaching staff, volunteer time and services to support our area's families in need and involve themselves in the community. With the seasons of thanks and giving upon us, Nathan Hale was a part of this holiday spirit by giving back to the community through our school-wide Thanksgiving food drive sponsored by the Rotary Interact Club. We are proud to share that Nathan Hale collectively donated close to 1,200 food items for one of our local food pantries servicing our West Allis families during this holiday season. Our holiday giving continued with participation in the West Allis West Milwaukee Recreation Department sponsored annual district holiday shopping experience for our West Allis elementary students at Target on Highway 100 on December 9th. In support of this wonderful community event, financially supported by the Zeman Foundation, approximately 125 of our Nathan Hale students and staff in various athletic and activity groups assisted our West Allis West Milwaukee families as Santa's helpers to find special gifts for Christmas. Some of the groups in attendance included the boys and girls basketball teams, cross-country team, Rotary Interact Club, NHS, POM and cheerleading squads, class councils, best buddies, select homerooms, and a number of caring individuals. Our orchestra students added to the event by providing festive holiday music as families waited in line to begin their shopping experience. Compassion and support for others in need are important attributes for all of us to embrace. The holiday season can be some of the most difficult times for families, and it is very rewarding putting a smile on someone else's face, like at this Target event.
Academic and Career Planning Day. Nathan Hale High School hosted a whole school academic and career planning day on the morning of Tuesday, December 12th. With an entire school and district focus on college and career readiness for all students, we developed a morning of programming promoting this initiative for each grade level. The career fair provided our 9th and 10th grade students an opportunity for exposure to a broad range of careers and helped them learn about each directly from those who work in that specific area, including education and training pathways to enter the career, the employment outlook for the field, positives and negatives, pay ranges, and words of wisdom about how to find success in today's global economy. Students had an opportunity to select their top 3 sessions, 30 minutes each, to attend that day from 50 potential career speakers to choose from. While the juniors and seniors had an opportunity to select 3 presentations or workshops related to topics relevant to them in their stage of the academic and career planning process. Session choices included a college and career expo, where 25 representatives from colleges and universities throughout the state, as well as 4 branches of the military and other career opportunities like banks and beauty school, were available to assist students in answering questions regarding admission requirements, application processes, major offerings, and more. Financial literacy, where a presentation on financial literacy for students transitioning beyond high school, including basic budgeting, banking, student loans, credit cards, and planning financially for the future. Employability and interviewing skills, a presentation on the employability skills necessary for the workplace, along with beginning with the application and interviewing process. And lastly, an alumni panel discussion, where the Nathan Hale alumni from UW-Milwaukee, Marquette, UW-Waukesha, and MATC spoke to the students about the transition from high school to college and post-secondary life. It was a great day of learning, with all students walking away with valuable information pertaining to where they are at in their high school career and decision-making process.
Okay, Nathan Hale, Performing Arts and Athletics. The holiday music concerts are underway, with the orchestra and choir performing last week. The events were a huge success, with a variety of music getting all in the holiday spirit, including the choir playing Water Glasses as the background music in one of the numbers. One of the most exciting things continues to be the collaboration between the various music groups and directors, where, for example, when the choir sang the Hallelujah chorus last Tuesday, the symphonic string supported them, and then on Thursday, our choir paid back the favor by singing with the orchestra. At one point, the stage was filled with approximately 150 students, including members from all music groups. The times where each student performs just once on their night is over, as the various groups have supported roles at each other's concerts as well. Planning ahead, our winter band concert is after the holiday, January 10th at 7 p.m. On the sports scene, the girls' basketball team is off to an awesome start to the season, with 7 wins and only 1 loss, finding themselves at the top of the Greater Metro Conference. Tomorrow night brings on the next challenge, as they host co-conference leaders Sussex Hamilton to stay at the top of the league. As for the wrestling team, they're off to a great start as well, including the following highlights: dual match record of 7-1, tournament champions at Lamira Duels, placed 8 wrestlers in top 4 at Marquette Invitational, and currently 2 wrestlers in state rankings: Marshall Rushton at 145 pounds and Peyton Mako at 160. With last week being capped with a 59-16 win over Brookfield East, earning Coach Farrell his 200th dual meet career win as a head coach. You guys have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you back here in 2018. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions by board members or comments?
I'd just like you to repeat the date of the concert in January, the band concert.
January 10th at 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. Both of you have a very good Christmas and a very nice New Year,
Thank you, you too.
and enjoy your time off.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will go on to 7.2, the board showcase this evening. Board members, we are intermixing school showcases, then with department or curriculum area showcases, and tonight we're featuring social studies. So I'll have that team come up and Deidre do a little introduction, and then we'll turn it over to the rest of the team.
Good evening. As Marty said, this is the night that we're going to share what we're doing in K-12 social studies. So we have Lisa Erickson is the K-5 social studies curricular lead, and Kent Klanowski is the 6-12 social studies curricular lead. And so they have brought a couple of teachers with them to kind of share some of the work that they're doing and just hear a little bit about where we are with social studies.
I'm going to have Brittany start. So, hi, I'm Brittany Verbanek. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Wilson Elementary School. I've been part of the social studies team since Lisa started, and we've been working a couple years to get the social studies curriculum together. Our first bullet point is about our curriculum map drafted using the C3 framework. So we got together as our team a couple years ago, and we laid out some curriculum maps, looking over all of the C3 framework, making sure that each grade level would cover the material that was in that framework. and making sure also that kindergarten through grade 5 would build off each other every year, so that the kids would learn something in one year and then the next grade would build upon that, all the way through 5th grade. So we worked together in a team that covered teachers in multiple grade levels to kind of frame out that C3 framework and to make sure that we were going to be able to cover all the material for the kids and then build upon that each year. Our second bullet point was the team developed to begin the grade level alignments. We welcomed anyone in the district, K through 5 teachers, to come to our meetings and to put together grade level teams to help to build the curriculum, so that we had a variety of teachers, schools, and grade levels to put that team together. And then we met over the summer to work on creating unit plans. It was nice because we were all in the same room, so as we were creating things, we really worked together to make sure too that we were catching all the stuff on the C3 framework and that we were using material from each year to build upon the following year. We also started with the backwards design, so we created our assessments together. So as a kindergarten teacher, I was looking at what my kids need to know when they get to 1st grade. And we worked really well as a team, and I really enjoyed being a part of it.
So continuing on with this year, we started the council meetings and began looking at creating further units, bringing in more teachers from different schools or adding to the teachers that were already working with us from the variety of schools. We started to look at resources and started to gather resources based on grade level and topic area. And then this summer, we're planning on completing the unit plans. They're still not 100% complete. And then fine-tuning the I can statements by strand, and then sharing and incorporating the work that goes on at our council meetings. We do meet once a month, all year long, excuse me, to share what's happening in different schools, different grade levels based on social studies. So, that's us.
All right, well, Ken Klanowski, Academic Dean at Central High School, and this is Angie Gerlowski.
Yep, I'm World History and AP World History teacher at Central. I've been here, this is my 3rd year.
So each of you received a handout that just kind of went over the year at a glance from last year, and then also a year at a glance from this year. So if you want to page through that at a later point in time, great, but that's just kind of the work that we've been doing in Social Studies 612. Last year, obviously, was a really busy year for social studies, or a busy semester. We got a lot of work done in a small amount of time. We adopted that new U.S. history textbooking material, same thing with psychology and sociology. We wrote curriculum for the U.S. history and economics during the summer, and then we also reviewed an updated curriculum for psychology. The 8th grade social studies, we spent a lot of time looking at the assessments there. Sociology, global relations, and geography was kind of updated. So it was a really busy summer. We got a lot done. We still have a lot of work to do, but it's moving in a really nice way. Last year, we also spent the time as a team. We focused on falling in love with close reading. We chose this book mainly because the year before, that's what the reading teachers had focused on, so that we could continue to build up our reading literacy skills as social studies teachers. We're really good at our content, but how do we actually teach how to read that content? And that was one of our big focuses last year. And Angie's going to talk a little bit about what's going on this year.
So this year we're working on a couple different things. So first of all, we have a vertical team, which is made up of one teacher from each representative from the middle school level, and then the high school has, the high schools have 2 representatives each. So I'm a member of that vertical team along with Heather Bain from Central, and the vertical team basically just focuses on reviewing and planning the CAP meetings, and then as well as reflecting on those meetings at the end of the year. So one of the things that the vertical team wanted to focus on for this year was 6 to 12 AP alignment. So getting students, even in middle school, aware of the expectations of high school, especially those AP historical thinking skills, which are really applicable to any course, regardless of whether it's AP, and getting students thinking about that. Especially, in order to get students thinking about that, we have to get teachers. So one of our big focuses this year is looking at AP alignment and what the expectations are. Additionally, what we're working on is a book study, which is a history teaching toolbox, which is here. I really like this book that Kent chose, so it's all about just different techniques social studies teachers can use that apply across courses within social studies, so it's not just for history. A lot of the lesson plan ideas are broad enough that you can apply them to any course within social studies and even beyond. I think you could see some of these lessons working well in science, English, etc. So we're working on that. So throughout the year, teachers will be presenting ways that they've incorporated lessons from the book into their instruction. We're also looking at reviewing curriculum, so that is obviously ongoing, but especially for that US 9 course, which has been introduced this year. The US 9 and psychology and sociology teachers are also working with McGraw-Hill to work on textbook stuff, learning more about the wonderful online resources. I'm not like super well versed on that since I don't teach US 9 or the other two classes, but it sounds like it's going very well. Additionally, we're working on reviewing and refining the ICANN statements. So we've taken a look at those. We've given our comments, and we're just going to continue aligning them to our teaching. And Kent will talk more about that on the next slide.
So if you saw Central Celebrations, we did include that in one of them where we did have the Social Studies 612 really spend some time on the ICANNs that all of you saw. And they gave their continued feedback on it, and so right now we're just polishing that off, and then once that gets polished up, we'll take it back to the entire team, and then they will kind of give a last kind of say, hey, is this all right or not? So we're almost through that process, because right now it's in the draft form, and we should have that pretty much wrapped up, hopefully around February-ish. January is the goal, but might need a little bit of extra time. So we're working on that right now, and then the next step is once we're good and everyone's fine with those ICANN statements, then becomes the hard work of aligning that to the work that we've already done. So that will be the next step that we'll start working into, and that'll be later in the school year, is looking at that alignment. This summer, some of the stuff that we're looking at, again, the ICANN statements, we'll start playing around with those and getting alignment done. Since we did write U.S. history and econ, that's all completely rewritten. This summer, we really want to spend time reviewing that and say what went well, what didn't go well, what do we need to kind of figure out. So we're going to spend some time just reviewing and reflecting on how the curriculum looks and what we need to do to fix it up. The intermediates have really asked, after seeing kind of some of the work we've done with the 8th grade assessments and trying to streamline those and make them clear, they really want their shot at kind of going back and reviewing some of those. And we're not looking at massive overhauls, it's just cleaning them up, making them look better, and making them more streamlined is one of the big goals that they have been asking for, and that's what we'll be focusing on this summer. We'll also be taking at the end of the year with the vertical team and everything else, we'll take back their feedback about any other curriculum that needs to be kind of looked at or tweaked, but nothing massive, just little tweaks, little focus, clean it up. So,
Questions or comments by board members? None?
Sue?
Pretty clear and concise. I mean, it's what it is, cut and dry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
I would ask one question. As you deal with research materials, and social studies is something that, in addition to past history, is a lot of current events. And how do you go about clearing things so that you're comfortable with it, or what kind of allowances do you give to your teachers so that they can look the material over that, especially as current and forward, and bring it into the classroom for students to work on?
I can answer that, or would you like to answer it, Angie?
I mean, you can answer it first.
Basically, one of the goals that we have, and when you sat in the ICANN things, I showed that really great article that says, why in the world should we care about World War I? And it goes through the frame of all the different things that we have lived through throughout the rest of the 20th century and that we're still living with and grappling with from this conflict that happened 100 years ago. It's really important for social studies that students understand the connections with what's going on today. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. Some people use different news sources. The McGraw-Hill has a daily news type thing, little cast that they do. I've seen other staff members use some of the other media outlets where they give little like student news clips and they show that. Some of them have the students looking up the stuff themselves on the phone. I mean, when you go onto Apple on the side, they have like top hit news things of the day. There's lots of different ways to do that, but it's really about making those connections to what's going on in the world and what's going on to them that they're interested in, and really that's the lens that we're continuing to work on. It's not always the easiest, by any means, but the more that you can connect it to what's going on, the better, connections you're going to have and the more engagement that you're going to have with students. So, Angie, do you want to add anything?
Yes. Now I kind of, I didn't really get the question at first, so, but now I get it. So a couple things that I do, especially with a world history course, it can be hard to make it really relevant to students, even though it is extremely relevant to students. So a few times a week, like once or twice, I show CNN Student News, which although it's aimed at students who are from like kindergarten through high school, it's a really good way to break down things that are going on in the world today, and then we can draw connections to what's going on in class. I also work with a reading teacher, and we focus on like once a week or once every other week, we will look at an article or something from the news that's more current, that I tie back to class. So for instance, when we learned about the Roman Empire, there's a really neat article about how like all of the like aqueducts had lead in it, and so like they all were getting lead poisoning. So I connected that to what was going on in Flint, and then also with like the lead situation in Milwaukee pipes as well. So getting students thinking about, okay, this is something that happened 2,000 years ago, but like let's compare it to something that's similar going on today, or as close as we can. So I try to do that as often as I can, because if it's not relevant to students, I mean, they're going to leave class not thinking it's important. So that's one thing that I work on really hard, and like Kent said, it's not the easiest thing to do, but ultimately, as long as you keep trying, I think there'll be some success.
What about at elementary?
I would say in elementary, we also use CNN 10, a variety of teachers use that. Also through our Achieve and some of the other online resources we use, that's how we tie the current events into more of an elementary level. We also do a lot with kids bringing in their own thinking about things that they've heard on the news. We try to monitor, obviously, what they're exposed to, keep it to a grade level appropriate take on it all. But
Thank you.
In kindergarten, we kind of are just developing, what's going on and having them have an understanding of what Veterans Day is, or, what's going on on the calendar and those kinds of things. So we make it grade level appropriate, just so they're aware. I feel like in kindergarten, just building that foundation, that they understand what a veteran is, and when they're leaving, they wrote a letter to a veteran. So just finding the grade level, age appropriate materials so that they are ready when they get to high school for those things with the background knowledge.
I think that's really important in keeping the students engaged. So I'm glad that you take time to do it and we work at it. It is meaningful. There is relevance there, and that's important. That's why we bother taking the time to teach students and require that all the way up to high school level. It's important, and I'm glad to hear you do it. Thank you.
Any other comments? None? Thank you for your time this evening. Have a very
Nice job.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays.
Yes.
Okay, on to 7.3, the legislative update, just a couple things here. There's a new Blue Ribbon Commission on school funding, and so this is the next attempt to look at are there opportunities to change, develop school funding models in Wisconsin in new ways. It held its first meeting on December 14th. The commission heard presentations from the Department of Public Instruction, the Legislative Fiscal Bureau, testimony from invited speakers, and then there was a hearing that was televised and streamed live on Wisconsin Eye. This is, I'll be honest with the board, this is being met with, among area superintendents, with some skepticism. And the SWSA pulled the history, and this is, don't quote me on this, but this is like the 9th commission of some stature, in the last 20 years or something, looking at school funding, and there's been very little change as a result of every time we've tried to look at it, because it's such a complicated system. But the fact that there's another study of it is a recognition that there are some things that I generally agree are not fair, right? And so I think trying to figure out how you solve that is pretty complex. A couple other things that are going on. There's some movement, and looks like we're in with the Assembly and the Senate conversations around what happens with assessments in particular and accountability. So there is some bill here with 488 and in the Senate 536. This is really about what assessments have to be given in which schools by school boards or operators of independent charter schools, private schools, so there's always a push to get as much kind of common assessments across, but then there are groups within that that want to have some options, right? So that makes it a little harder to compare apples to apples, but that's part of the debate in these bills. And then the next one, which is AB 304, Senate Bill 234, which expands opt-out from statewide examinations. It's problematic for us because if you start having large numbers of students opt out of the common assessments that we want everybody to take, the data that we get back is less and less reliable, right? Because there's students missing from it, so you're going to start drawing conclusions from data that may not be actually representing what's happening, right? So we're concerned about the opt-out option. And then the last is a modification of this district accountability reports, which we know is the state school report cards. Right, so that's what's been happening. And then the federal level, there's nothing new at this point. There are no congratulatory resolutions this evening. And then just a couple quick updates. It's only been 1 week since our last meeting, so I don't have a lot to update you on. There were no public comments on December 11th. That was our last meeting. But one thing I will share, and this is, I think, kind of cool news, that tomorrow I'll be attending the Common Council meeting in West Allis, and they're taking up action on a special use permit for Shared Journeys. So Shared Journeys is working to move into Apostle Presbyterian, and so this has been in the works for quite a while. And so just for background and for the public, I mean, this would be a lease arrangement, although Aurora pays for the lease space. They've been paying for the lease space for Shared Journeys for years. You know, right now they're across the street from Aurora, and they're going to continue to make that contribution to pay for the lease. So we've been working really closely. Lisa has done a very nice job in working with the city. They've gotten through the committee level support for this already. Kathy, the pastor there, has been phenomenal to work with, and she's very sensitive to the fact that, you know, we're a public school. It's a charter school. It's a public school going into a parochial space, a religious space, and so we're going to, you know, and Lisa and I did a walkthrough, and there's certain paintings that probably need to be moved, and you know, I've had some conversations with our attorneys just to make sure that there aren't any surprises later on. And there are charter schools all over the state that rent in former church spaces, because lots of Catholic and Lutheran schools closed over the years, and they're still really good school buildings. So it's not uncommon. We just want to make sure we're doing it well. But I'll be going tomorrow night to speak on behalf to the Common Council. And that completes the superintendent's report.
Okay, we'll move on to number 8, excuse me, the board's president's report. Before we get to the calendar, just a couple of things. We, as a board, received a nice Christmas card from the Recreation Department. I will pass down. We did receive, as a board, Dr. Lexman's letter asking for an extension, which is a procedural thing that you needed to do under the current terms of my contract with the West Allis West Milwaukee School District. Indicate I must remind you in writing that document it's time for you to consider extension of my contract agreement. And this is officially his letter. I'll pass that down there for your perusal. And then we take a look at our calendar following this evening's regular meeting. We have a closed session meeting, and then we do not meet again until Monday, January 8th. Regular Board of Education meeting, followed by Business Services Workshop, which will deal with the 216, 217 audit report and open enrollment and 220 seats. Then the following week, Monday, January 15th, we will have a workshop, and that will be on learning and technology and the Student Services Workshop, the project-based learning, career-based educational opportunities, and the academic and career planning. And then Monday, January 22nd, we are at our second regular Board of Education meeting of the month. Right now, we do not have a workshop scheduled after that. Just a reminder to the public that our regular meetings are televised. Our workshops are not televised, but they are public and open to, they are open to the public to attend. Our regular Board of Education meetings start at 6 o'clock. Anyone have anything for the good of the community or activities going on? Dan?
Thank you, Jeff. I just wanted to mention again that the rec department and their people and a lot of the community really did a wonderful job again as far as setting up, cleaning up, and being involved. So kudos to all of them who were involved. Thanks.
Very much so. Anyone else?
Pat?
The CAD New Year's Eve will be at Central High School this year, again, for families who would like to have activities with their children. So from, I believe it is 6:30 until 11 o'clock at West Dallas Central High School, good family activities for New Year's Eve.
Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items. 9.1, the approval of the minutes from December 11th. 9.2, the employment summary and supplemental contracts, and 9.3, the financial summary. Does any board member need any of those separated out? Seeing no hands go up, we can take those as a group. We'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Been moved and seconded. Any last-minute comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Those pass. We'll move on to our action item. We have 3 this evening. First one, 10.1, the international field trip for high school students to Ecuador, South America in July of 2019.
So we'll turn this over to the team. Deidre can introduce them, but I will say, when I saw the paperwork introduced on this one, I thought, ooh, where do I sign up? This is exciting, so yeah, we look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, yeah.
But we're gonna start with some students sharing one of their experiences, but we just have to figure out how to get that to work.
There you go.
And you're up.
Nope.
No, okay, good. As long as they're on their microphone, we're good. Yeah, there's a microphone there, we're okay. So why don't you start by introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Emily. I am a senior at Hale. I'm Megan Kraft. I'm a junior also at Hale. So. Well, this past July, we both went to Guatemala and Belize.
Can you slide the mic over?
Yeah.
Thank you.
This past July, we both went to Guatemala and Belize as a school Spanish trip.
So we spent the majority of the time in Guatemala, and for a bunch of the days, for a week, we went to school at the Tecumseh Spanish school. So we went for 4 hours a day, and then with the remainder of the day, we did excursions such as
we went and hiked a volcano. We toured a coffee plantation. We went to a Guatemalan market.
Just go through the slides that way. Okay, so here is when we went to Chichicastenango, which is a market in Guatemala. And so it was a huge market, and we went to lunch there. And
Yeah, there was a lot of Spanish involving, like, bargaining for prices and talking and trying to discuss a good price for everything.
super crowded. Yeah, they really butchered you for products that you saw. We also, during that trip, we went to the Lake Atitlan, which was also, they had more market, but not as much as Chichicastenango. And we just walked around the lake touring, kind of seeing regular.
Yeah. Okay, so, like she said, we had classes 4 hours a day, and they were at the Tikkun Oman school. Yeah, there were about 4 students per class, and per teacher, sorry. At the school, we also took dancing lessons, and
salsa.
Yeah, we'd also go on like mini excursions, I guess you could say.
To local areas.
Yeah, with my teacher, we went and toured a cemetery and learned a lot about their traditions. And we also went to a smaller market in Antigua, which is where we had the host day.
We celebrated one birthday while we were there.
Yes.
So this is when we went to hike a volcano. On the way up, you had the option, or on the way down as well, you had the option of buying a horse to ride. I was one of them. But there was also like a little store there where you could buy like
Lava jewelry.
lava jewelry, yeah. So they made jewelry out of like the lava. But from this eruption, the rocks are still hot, so you can roast marshmallows in them.
The eruption was like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a hole in the lava, and they're roasting marshmallows from the lava that's still hot. It was pretty cool.
So, you can stand on it, but you can roast marshmallows.
So while we were also there, we toured a coffee plantation and we got to go ziplining there, which was really fun.
Then we took more like a day trip to Tikal, Guatemala.
A prop plane?
Yeah, it was a very small plane. But there we visited ancient ruins and we learned a lot about the culture there, and it was really cool.
While we were there, we visited a school and we donated supplies to that school. And
Things like notebooks and pencils and crayons and
yeah.
stuff like that.
And they have PBIS in Belize as well. As you can see, we are respectful, responsible, and safe, which is the same motto that Nathan has.
When we were at the school, they sang their national anthem and their school
Pledge.
Pledge of Allegiance.
We went to a Mennonite community, or through the Mennonite community in Belize on our way to this cave.
Yeah. On our way to this cave, we actually drove our bus through like a river, and it was crazy, but it was crazy.
Cool.
So then when we got to the cave, we canoed through the cave where.
Yeah, we also learned a bit about Mayan culture there, and then it was actually a really cool tour. My tour guide was funny.
Yeah, we all went with probably 4 people per tour guide.
Yeah.
So it was pretty
Evenly
divided.
We canoed deep into the cave, and then they turned off the flashlights.
Yeah.
That was so
Absolutely
scary.
the blackest it's ever been. We did have some students with like a fear of the darkness. And our group, they said, do you want to sing a song? So we started singing Amazing Grace. It was super, super cool and spiritual, and it echoed, and the girl who was deathly afraid of the dark, like, got over her fear for that little bit of time because we were singing. It was super cool. But they also, when they weren't canoeing, they had to wait, and so then they were swimming in the river and did a little bit of cliff jumping. Then finally,
We went to San Pedro, Belize, which I believe is where Madonna got
Madonna
the song
sings about
from.
it.
Yes.
San Pedro.
And
I always want to sing it more.
and that was more of our, like, I guess, relaxed part of the trip. They don't speak Spanish there, so it was sort of like a regular vacation, and we got to swim in the sea and walk along the beach.
Yeah. Oh, we also went snorkeling. Yeah. So the coral reef, and one of the coolest parts was when we got to swim with the sharks, and
Nurse sharks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. you could hold them and you could like touch the stingrays, and it was really cool being so up close and personal with them, and it was a crazy experience. So.
Put Shed's aquarium to shame.
Oh yeah.
We ate a lot of really, really good food.
Yeah, fresh.
Alright, so this just says thank you for
The support.
sorry, thank you for the support of all our
Of
like,
the
parents and the administration for allowing us to go on these international trips.
Well, that's it. This is at Tikal, which is the Mayan ruins in Guatemala, super famous. So, that was a little thank you kind of thing. And then we have our Ecuador trip approval that we are seeking here today. My name is Bridget Boyle. Jessica Santiago, Jessica Rourke is at Central High School. Santiago and I are both at Hale. And this is our next journey, hopefully, for our Hale kids. I was in Ecuador last in 1983-84 school year when I was a Rotary Youth Exchange student, my senior year in high school. So this is kind of like going home, but it's not the same because it is, but it's in Quito, and I lived further down the coast. So we won't be going to the area where I lived, but it's still Quito, it's still Otavalo. So instead of doing the Mayan indigenous cultures, when we go to Ecuador, we're going to be doing the Inca indigenous culture. So just like we went to Chichicastenango in Guatemala, we're going to go to Otavalo and Ibarra, which are indigenous marketplaces there where you can barter without speaking. So that'll be real interesting for all of us. But do you want me to kind of talk you through the trip at all here? Or? Okay. So again, all of the trips that we lead have a homestay and a school component. We always ask for 4 to 5 days of school for our students for 4 hours a day. They're in groups of 2 to 6 students with a native Spanish speaker and teacher. The schools that we go to are always approved. They're not like necessarily college approval, but they're definitely like international schools where people from all over the world go to learn Spanish. So once again, we're going to be staying in homestays in Quito, and Quito is right on the equator. It's in the Andes Mountains, and the temperature in July will not be Summerfest temps here. It will be like 50 to 60 degrees because it's a little colder, but the altitude is a lot higher. So we're going to go to meet our host families. We're going to spend the bulk of our nights with host families, so that's what keeps the cost of the trip down. Otavalo Market on Saturday, Cotopaxi. And the thing is like when I planned this, it's not, I always plan like kind of customized tours with Interact Travel. The other travel agencies don't offer me what I want. And I like to be able to say, look, I've been here, or I want to go back to, because I know how cool it is, to Otavalo. I want to go back to Ibarra. I want to go back to Baños, and to this Cotopaxi. Cotopaxi is a national park, and it's the highest active volcano on Earth. And when I was there as a high schooler, we hiked out to like just where the snow part is. So, and that's what we'll do again for those who are physically fit and able to. But so far on our trips, even when we've had students that weren't as physically fit perhaps, that's when they were able to they have the choices of like renting a horse and paying that extra money, you know, but that's kind of how we try to give it, the ones that are physically fit. I mean, this is cool stuff to do. This is once in a lifetime stuff to do. So we can hike up to the snow line, which is 4,800 meters. And I'm sorry, but my metric system is lacking now. So I can't tell you how many feet that is. Maybe someone else who does math well. But we'll, again, go to school. We will be going then in the afternoons when we're not in school. We'll do a city tour. We'll visit a local high school so that they can see what that's like there. We'll have some cooking lessons. We'll go on the teleférico. Teleférico is a cable car, thank you. And Friday, we get to go and stand on the equator and put one foot in the northern hemisphere and one foot in the southern hemisphere, and watch how the toilet water spoils and goes around the opposite way, you know, when you're on the equator, so, or in the southern hemisphere. It'll be cool. And then we're gonna go to Baños, which is the hot springs. And we're gonna go hang out there for a day or a night or whatever, and go look at the waterfalls and some of that stuff. There's a bridge, suspension bridge, so this is kind of like rainforesty stuff, sort of. But again, I did that when I was like 16, so I don't remember it totally well. So, but we're gonna go there. That's gonna be great. And then I always require my travel agency to end the trip with some beach time, because it's kind of the reward after going to school for that extra week. Because believe me, the students, that's like, they want to do it, but it's also like, oh God, we just got done with final exams, or we just did school and this is our summer and we don't want to do school anymore. But they do always get something out of it that's worthwhile. And so the beach at the end is the vacation-y part. And we make sure that we're doing stuff with them and make sure everybody's accountable, and that way they get to actually go out and like do meals on their own in restaurants, not just with the homestay. But like you see, there's 10 nights of family stay, and when we're with family stay, all the meals are included. Interact Travel, because they don't buy the plane tickets until like March of 2019, they give us 2 possible dates for leaving. It's never set. So our earliest departure date is July 12th, and our second departure date is July 19th. And the student fee is here. Recently, the airlines have always imposed the luggage fees on us. Those are not included, so last time it was $25 each way for the luggage fees. So the students have to come up with that. They have to come up with their passport. If they're under 16, it's cheaper. If they're over 16, it's more. As of right now, we're flying out of O'Hare. We were lucky enough with the Guatemala trip that we were able to get a flight out of Milwaukee. That's the first time that's ever happened. And believe me, it was just beautiful flying out of Milwaukee and not having to go to Chicago on a bus and add that extra time and the extra travel and the extra cost. We also do a group t-shirt and spending money and then meals on the beach. So those are the costs for students. In the past, we've always asked students to if they want to do any fundraising. We've also had the rule that if we're going to fundraise, we need a parent to assist, to be like a co-leader in the fundraising with one of us. And as of right now, like this last trip, we didn't do any. Other years we have. It kind of depends on the students that are going. Sometimes they find it easier to just work a full-time job at $7 or $8 or $9 or $10 an hour than selling, So that's kind of how it works for us. Do you guys have questions? I'm just gonna ramble on. Pardon me?
Questions?
I just want to say,
I'm just sorry, Mr. I'm going to go for a while.
This is awesome. So this is a really cool looking trip, and I just want to say thanks for providing this opportunity
Yes.
for these students, because I mean, this is the stuff they're going to remember forever.
It is.
And I know they'll have an awesome time with you, so this is awesome. Thank you.
I thank you so much. I do want to mention before I forget, Megan Kraft here. She experienced the Guatemala trip with us, and she is kind of following in my footsteps. Sorry, but she's going to be a Rotary Youth Exchange student next year, her senior year.
Good for you.
So she's waiting right now to find out which country she'll go to, and but I'm very, very, very proud of her. She let me know, like her freshman year, that she was interested in becoming an exchange student, and I talked her through it and said, these are the things we're gonna have to do. She started planning with her guidance counselor early so she could get in all of her coursework so that she will be able to do like the 3-year kind of, and then the senior year abroad.
I just really like to say that, I really like to thank Profe because she's really helped me, and the whole trip to Guatemala really confirmed my decision to travel abroad my senior year and continue learning about new cultures. And I don't think I would have been able to do that without Profe or the help of my Spanish teachers. So I'd just like to, just say how great these trips are and how amazing they were for me, and just, thank my teacher. So.
Nice.
I would like to thank you too, Bridget, and your team, but This is a,
Jessica.
the field trip, this is a field trip that sometimes, you know, they're kind of put together and we select a package, but you put so much personal time into it. And obviously, that's meaningful, because here we have two girls that have already done it before. It's not an inexpensive trip, but there's an awful lot going on, but you're returning to go on it again with another experience. So you make that personal connection, and they obviously really enjoy it, and they're going to get a lot out of it. So good job.
Thank you.
Nice to, we enjoyed your presentation.
Sue?
I just want to echo Pat's comments. I've known Bridget for a long time, and I know your students and all the wonderful work you do, and all of you teachers. I shouldn't, I just happen to know her. She happened to have my son. So, you know, but thank you.
Thank you.
Steph?
What's the breakdown of students per school that are going to be going? Since you're the Central Spanish teacher, are there students from Central that are going to be going on this trip as well? It's not just Nathan Hill
Yeah,
students?
it's for the whole district. So I really hope to recruit a lot more Central students this year, now that I was teaching at Hale for 10 years and now I'm at Central. So this is my second school year there. So we would love to have as many Central students as possible join us, as it is a district trip, not just Hale. So yeah.
This last trip, we had one from Central in Guatemala, but different years we've had a variety. Like there was one year when we went to Costa Rica, I think it was 2011 or 2008, I'm not sure, but we had like 8 students from Central, and that was just an amazing experience having the combination. Our trips do tend to be pretty big. We tend to have about 30 students, 25 to 30 students on every trip. And then in addition to Jessica and I pay so that my husband can go. So we do have a male adult. He's not officially a chaperone, but he's sort of his fatherly in some ways for the student. You know, he's there. And so we always have a pretty large group. But we would love to have more Central students come. And so we're pretty excited now that Jessica's over at Central to help recruit better and have the kids know a teacher who's leaving.
No.
Sounds awesome. I'm jealous. I have to ask about safety considerations. Just with everything that happens nowadays, unfortunately, you know, what sort of things are in place. I presume you're using obviously a reputable company and tour guides and things like that. So can you just take me through kind of the things that safety-wise are on this trip or would be on this trip?
We always ask the students, we do not require them, but we suggest that they purchase an insurance, a traveler's insurance, in case there were some reason that the trip would be canceled at the last second. We don't fear like so much the terrorist kind of things, because it is South America, Central America, where we've traveled in the past. We do have cell phones along for contact at any moment with the travel agency in Green Bay. We always have a local guide who is our person who's with us the whole time. As a matter of fact, on the Guatemala trip, he was the guy who was taking a lot of the professional photography. So that was super cool too. But safety-wise, we make sure that we follow all of the district guidelines. We have the students have to get all the physicals and those things so that they're well. We have had incidents in the past where we've had to take students to a clinic or a hospital because they've been sick due to either just like food issues, they didn't eat, they ate and they got giardia or something, stomach issues. But we've never had, you know, serious security problems, other than having kids get sick once in a while. We've been in contact with parents when we've needed to alert them about like a sick kid, but a lot of times we can't alert them immediately because they don't have any control over the situation. So we try to get everything under control first, and then we let them know what happened. But do you guys have anything security-wise that the travel agency, there's always somebody with us. We haven't had any problems.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I think we're ready to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Last minute questions, comments? None? All in favor of the international field trip, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Congratulations.
Thank you.
We will move on to 10.2, the 218-219 budget development calendar that we looked at last week at our workshop.
Right, and last week, I did, I made my best effort to represent it when Mike wasn't feeling well. So we're happy to have Mike back. And again, this is an annual item that comes before the board, so, it hasn't changed since last week. But if there are questions before we take the official action, we're happy to answer.
Questions or comments?
And just for you, the key is that it just keeps the communication between us to make sure that we're on par to get this completed in a timely fashion and make sure that we do everything we need to get completed on time.
And it's just an evolving document. We just,
Yep.
month to month, you kind of know then what's coming up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you always have an opportunity to interact, ask questions, as we move along.
Move to approve. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Yes, thank you, Mike. Move on to 10.3, the WASB resolutions. Stephanie?
Sure. So, a little history. So annually at the WASB convention, there is a committee of the delegates from each of the school districts, and they review the WASB proposed resolutions for that next year. So every year they send the proposed resolutions out to the member districts for review, and then at the delegate assembly in January at the WASB convention, they will ask for votes on whether or not each individual resolution will be approved for WASB to take up in that particular year. Last year I attended as the delegate as well, and our board approved the resolutions as they were. The final resolutions that were approved by the WASB delegation were slightly different. There were some changes proposed by some other member organizations, and then the WASB delegation debates those and then eventually approves those final resolutions. So the WASB proposed resolutions for this year were provided to all of you for review, and then it'll be up to our board to decide if we want to support the resolutions as a whole, or if they're individual resolutions we do not, or if there's any changes that we would want to propose. So I'll open it up for conversation.
On the proposal of 18.08, it's called the WIAA autonomy. It concerns me when it gets down to the resolution, well, wait a minute, it's 1809, excuse me, the implementation of the NCSL. And it concerns me that I don't know what No Time to Lose program is, and I didn't take the time to actually look it all up to find out. But it would be something that I would want our superintendent to take a look at and say, is this something that is a good thing or a bad thing?
So the No Time to Lose is really the latest kind of analysis of some of the highest performing educational systems nationally and internationally, and then starts to take a look at what we're doing in Wisconsin and how we can move towards those kinds of practices. And I think it's consistent with the work we've been doing. There's some districts in the state that are using the NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, to really benchmark against international comparisons, which can be powerful when we start to look at what our work compared to a Finland, for example, which is always one that stands out. So, but I don't think there'd be anything in it that we'd find shocking. Right? I think we'd find them, the recommendations, all good sense, not easy, but powerful opportunities to move systems forward.
So you're recommending that that's a positive and we should support it?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I would propose that we would approve the support of the resolutions as written, and that would be my vote as the delegate at the assembly.
A second to that motion?
Second.
I don't think we need a roll call on this, do we? All in favor of supporting the resolutions for WASB, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
I have another question. I'm sorry. Can I still ask it?
Nothing will change, the motion is passed. But you can ask the question.
Well, I'm looking at Resolution 18-13, and that's the teacher certification license, and that was another one that I was hoping that our superintendent would say that he supports that or doesn't support it. Because it seems to me that this policy appears to want to lessen the ability of school systems to hire, let's say, mechanics as, to be able to teach mechanics, or they have loosened some of the teaching regulations, and this seems like it would tighten them or make that more difficult. So I just have a concern about 18-13.
So, my interpretation of that is that it does what you just described, Sue, is that it actually is an expression of interest in not eroding teacher licensure processes and expectations. So it's not direct language in that regard, but the most recent state budget did change some of the licensure requirements and processes that have raised some eyebrows, that are, we're going to say, have the same level of quality. And I think this is a statement that is more on the line of supporting that we want to continue to have clear processes that support quality educators in their licensure pursuit.
Okay, we'll move on to item 11, board members' suggestions for future agenda items. We have a bunch we are working on to try to plug into the workshop schedule. But if something crosses your mind, throw me an email and we'll talk about it. Right now, we'll take a 5-minute recess while Brian takes down the cameras. We will reconvene an executive session, and I would ask that the room be cleared. We are at recess.